And live.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. That is peace be unto you. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I seek refuge with Allah from the rejected enemy, the Satan, with Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We give all praise and thanks to Allah, the one Lord, cherisher, sustainer of all systems of knowledge, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We would like to welcome you again to another program with NewAfrica Talks, coming to you live from Harlem, New York. NewAfrica Talks is a program dedicated to the focus on the students and community, specifically the students and community of Imam W.D. Mohammed, who, for those that may be new, he is the son and successor of his father, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who built the Nation of Islam from the teachings of its founder, Professor W.D. Farad, also known as later on in life, Muhammad Abdullah. We want to be specific in what we mean by students. We can pick up what community is, but people that support and work under the leadership of Imam W.D. Muhammad. But students, we mean specifically students in this fashion. Imam Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, he said, a student is anyone who's willing to be taught. And this is a paraphrase from a statement that Imam Muhammad made. We don't have the actual statement here. I think we read it last time on the last program, but the paraphrasing of what Imam Muhammad means by his students are those that put nothing above his language, knowledge, commentary, and insight, except the Quran and the life of Muhammad the Prophet. I have to repeat that. The students of Imam W.D. Muhammad are the ones who put nothing above his commentary, language, and insight, but the Quran and the life of Muhammad the Prophet. NewAfrica, for those of you that don't know, that's a word that's been getting around a lot with different programs and different talks. NewAfrica, well, I'll give you Imam Muhammad's definition first, and then I'll give you a definition that I heard from Brother Sharif Abdul Malik, who is the owner, founder, and CEO of We Buy Black. Imam Muhammad said, NewAfrica for us, because somebody else may claim NewAfrica, other Muslims may claim NewAfrica. Imam Muhammad said, NewAfrica for us, and he's talking about him and his community, is a chance to establish al-Islam in America with our own hands. NewAfrica for us is a chance to us to establish al-Islam in America with our own hands. And Brother Sharif said, NewAfrica is the physical manifestation of the group life expression of African-American people, but specifically Muslim African-Americans. That doesn't mean that it's not for African-Americans, but NewAfrica is a new chance for a new people, a new identity, much like the ones that were here coming to America from old Europe and other places, York, Amsterdam, Jersey. When they came here, they called it New. New York, New Jersey, New Amsterdam, New England, New Orleans. And what that meant was that they are bringing a new reality to their hopes and their accomplishments and their traditions. They have a new opportunity to establish that in a new land. So that's, we just wanted to make sure we mention that. And we have well, it's kind of like a catchphrase with this program. We bring on students because this program, we don't want it has no outside interference. Those three words you should remember. No outside interference. What does that mean? We're not bringing people on here that have other ideas from other learned scholars, other kinds of madhab, schools of thought, other kinds of philosophies, whether it be Muslim or whoever. We're only bringing people in here that are dedicated and tenacious about the language and leadership of our leader and teacher, Imam W.D. Muhammad. So you won't get any outside interference. So when you hear people talk, you'll know where we're coming from. This program today, alhamdulillah, that's all praise due to Allah. It was postponed from an earlier date, but now we have Allah allowed us and blessed us with us having the date here for the topic, knowledge of self. The topic of this talk is called Knowledge of Self, Maintaining Your Identity as a Student of Imam W.D. Muhammad while pursuing, and I'm having quotations, classical Islamic studies. Remember, it's in quotations, classical Islamic studies, and we're going to get into why we labeled it that. We've been blessed with two, one second. Students of Imam Muhammad that we're going to read today. We have Sister Anisa Dewan and Sister Kalimah Azeez Rashada. Both students of Imam W.D. Muhammad. One specifically was in his Dawah class. The other was taught by students of Imam W.D. Muhammad and went to Syria to study. We'll read Sister Anisa Dewan. She's not on yet. We're going to read Sister Anisa Dewan's. Well, we'll read Sister Kalimah since she's here. We'll just go right into her. I was going to read hers first, and then when she got here, we'll read hers first. Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Kalimah Azeez Rashada is a native of Chicago, Illinois. She was born and raised Muslim into a strong and beautiful family in the community of Imam W.D. Muhammad. At the age of 13, Kalimah was chosen by Imam W.D. Muhammad to be one of the 12 students to participate in his weekend Youth Dawah Class. I just want to stop here. When we think of Imam Muhammad, think of scripture. Why did he choose 12? Go back in your mind and what do you see as 12 in scripture? During this class, Kalimah diligently studied Quranic, Arabic, Islamic studies, and comparative religion for the last 8 years of Imam W.D. Muhammad's life. Very significant. In addition to Kalimah's love and passion for the religion of Al-Islam, she has a great interest in psychology and education. She studies social psychology and strategic communications at Northern Illinois University. Kalimah takes her love and understanding of her religion of Al-Islam and shares it through many mediums such as teaching, urban planning, art, poetry, lectures, and writing. In 2009, Kalimah taught second grade at the Clara Muhammad School located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The following year, she was moved to Senegal. I forgot about that. Senegal, West Africa, and was instrumental in the opening of IQRA, I-Q-R-A, bilingual academy with members of the United States. In 2017, Kalimah married Naeem Rashada and moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where she worked for the local government and sits on 6 different boards throughout the country. Kalimah wants nothing more than to see her people, African American people, uphold the covenant that God has given them and liberate the world from the schemes of Satan. She tirelessly works and spends of her wealth and human capital to be a catalyst to bring about God's will here in the United States of America. She's currently working on strategies for community development, business and education, using teachings of Imam W.D. Muhammad to help advance our community. We'd like to welcome you. If you want to say anything before we start asking questions, you may. Welcome, Sister Kalimah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullah. As they said, my name is Sister Kalimah. I'm from Chicago. Had the wonderful experience of being taught directly from Imam Muhammad in his Youth Dawah classes, which is an experience that I would trade for nothing else in the world. And this topic on knowing thyself, maintaining your identity as a student of Imam Muhammad while pursuing, like you said, classical Islamic studies.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting topic, one that I find a lot of students battling with, especially a lot of younger or newer students coming and studying Imam Muhammad, coming in from universities, as well as other influences from different scholars around the world. So this is a very interesting topic. I'm just going, inshallah, I'm going to jump right in. And in jumping right in on this particular topic, I want to start off by first bringing understanding to our listening audience as to who Imam Warthaddin Muhammad is. And when we understand Imam Warthaddin Muhammad, then we understand what it is to be a student or one who is operating in the same spirit and path that Imam Muhammad has set us on. And I'm gonna read a direct quote of Imam Muhammad from one of his Dawah classes that he taught on the weekends. And it says, I said that actually, if we don't understand it, if we could accept what I said, Allah was working on us as a collective group of people to give birth to a particular mind and spirit for his work that he wants us to do through us and with us. All of your births was the birth of Imam Warthaddin Muhammad. To say that, whether you know it or not, your desire to stay with it, your patience, your endurance, your perseverance, your sacrifice, what was behind all of it was giving birth to Imam Warthaddin Muhammad. And when my mind was born, you were born. It is in your nature, your natural life, to wait for Imam Warthaddin Muhammad to be completed. And as he grows, you take him into your mind, your heart, your life, and God forces me to share with you. I said, I'm not comfortable doing these things. He forces me to share with you these things that he has given me, that the world would say, that man may be crazy or out of his mind. So I'm leading with this because I want us to understand, we're speaking to students and people who are interested in the study of Imam Warthaddin Muhammad, Quran and Sunnah, is that the mind of Imam Muhammad is the mind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to the African American people here in America who follow the Islamic traditions underneath the leadership of Imam Muhammad. So it says in the Quran that we rise and we fall as one. So if we understand that the life of that one individual is the collective life of all of us, the mind of Imam Muhammad is the collective mind of all of us. So if Allah wants to give us a new mind, if Allah wants to give us a new identity, he doesn't have to sprinkle it and, just give it to everybody. He can give it to one individual. And this has always been the traditional sunnah. Allah says in the Quran that he has a sunnah. So this has always been his sunnah. He gives it to one individual, and he gives that individual the spirit to make sure that he disperses this wisdom, disperses this understanding, disperses this mind with every individual. And if we know the tradition of Africa, or if we know the tradition of African Americans, we have been hit with dynamic leaders back to back to back, that we can look at other group of people and be like, wow, they've never had such a succession of leaders like that. But we have been blessed with that. And Imam Muhammad is almost that, well, he is not, he is that cap of what we have been longing for, what we have been wanting, the mind understand that we have been wanting. So when we understand that Imam Muhammad is not just a religious figure, not just a historical figure, the son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, or the American Muslim spokesperson, but he is the embodiment of a mind and wisdom and a thinking that is the inheritance of the African American soul. And that inheritance is al-Islam. That is our inheritance. So Imam Muhammad is the mind and the spirit that is coming to revive al-Islam in the hearts and the thinking and the life of African American people. So I go even further to say to you that the classical Islamic studies is not in any way different from the fundamental teachings of Imam Muhammad. So that's a fallacy to think that you have Imam Muhammad's teaching and then classical Islamic studies, because Imam Muhammad taught straight from the Quran, and he supports it with the life of Muhammad the Prophet and his Sahabas. And you can't get more classical than that. But the difference is that Imam Muhammad is a clean understanding of that information, a clean understanding of Islamic teachings and the life of Muhammad the Prophet. He's clean, and he comes to refresh the view of the classical Islamic studies, or the classical Islamic knowledge that is shared. So Imam Muhammad comes and he is the clean, he has not been muddied by the culture, by superstitions, by government influences. He has not had his wisdom and his tafsir and his commentary has not been shrouded in biases, slants, egos that have taken place over generations, and it's just a pure understanding of Quran and Muhammad the Prophet. So when we understand that, and that's our inheritance as African Americans, that's our inheritance as students, is to get an understanding of this religion, to get an understanding of the way of life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants for us, that has not been affected, that is not anything or anyone else. So classical Islamic studies is exactly what Imam Muhammad teaches. That is his tafsir, that is his commentary. That is classical Islamic studies. And when we understand it that way, instead of seeing it as two separate realities, you have Imam Muhammad's teachings, and then we have, the classical, and I have to travel to somewhere in Egypt, or I have to go elsewhere in order to get the true classical studies of this religion, in addition to Imam Muhammad. That's a fallacy in our thinking if we take that approach. And of course, in that, you are definitely going to lose your identity, because if you think of them as two separate realities, then you have already compartmentalized your identity, and so you can easily get lost in it. But when you understand that Imam Muhammad is classical Islamic studies, but he's classical Islamic studies in a language that is so clear and so plain, so down to earth. And Muhammad the Prophet, we know that he said, do not speak to the person over their head or in a manner where they can't understand it. So he brings classical Islamic studies, Imam W.D. Muhammad, he brings it to us in a language where we understand it, where we can relate to it. So I just want to start off making that point, because it's something that I see a lot of individuals take this approach that they are two separate realities, two separate understandings, and not seeing them as one, not seeing what Imam Muhammad taught as classical Islamic studies, not seeing what Imam Muhammad taught as pure Quran and Sunnah, pure Quran and Sunnah. That is actually our inheritance, that is our right to have as a group of people who have been, I say, taken through the ringer. And as we can see the conditions of the world, we are still going through that particular ringer. And we have something that is so beautiful. So now that we understand, or now that inshallah, we got to have the picture and the understanding that what Imam Muhammad brought is classical Islamic studies, then it allows us to go into anything that we read. It can be from different scholars, it can be from different Islamic philosophers around the world. That becomes the lens. How Imam Muhammad taught us, how Imam Muhammad instructed us to think, that becomes the lens in which we read anything else. And everything else becomes reference points for us. It's like when you have, you're writing a essay or research paper, and you have your bibliography at the end, and you're just referencing other sources that also support, you can support or deny what you are looking at or what you're researching. So everything else just becomes information that we use the lens of the pure, unmuddied understanding of Quran and Sunnah that Imam Muhammad gave us to read and to understand and to extract information from. So we have, I normally put it in these three areas. We have the wisdom of Imam Muhammad, because to have the wisdom of Imam Muhammad, you can have the tafsir or the commentary, but the way that he gave it, the way that he reached and spoke to the people and brought understanding and took us from the mythology of the Nation of Islam and into the true understanding of Al-Islam, that's his wisdom. He's very wise. So then you have the tafsir of Imam Muhammad, and that's what we read, his commentary. But then you also have the spirit of Imam Muhammad. And the spirit of Imam Muhammad is very, very crucial when studying anything, when putting on his lens and viewing any information that comes to you. The question was asked to Imam. They asked and they said, "Oh, Imam, why? What is wrong with the Islamic world? We're looking at the Islamic world and we used to be advanced individuals in the world, leaders in the world. The Islamic world was leaders in education, leaders in science, leaders in government. Now, all of a sudden, we're no longer the leaders. The Islamic world is no longer the leaders. As a matter of fact, the Islamic world is declining. If you look at it from war to high levels of poverty, to government who doesn't have his interest in his people, to the religion losing its beauty, sciences not being revived in these countries. So the Islamic world has it's fallen from its high point. And that question was asked, what is wrong with the Islamic world? And we got a couple of different answers. Some people in the class at that time, they were saying they lost the Quran. They don't have the Quran. That's what's wrong with the Islamic world. They're not following the Quran. And Imam Muhammad stopped them. He said, no, they have the Quran. If you go there, you can find Hafiz a dozen. You can find so many people that know the Quran, can recite the Quran, have understanding of the Quran. You have many scholars there that are well-versed in the Quran. He said, what they are missing is the spirit of Muhammad the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is what they're missing. You can have the Quran, but if the spirit of Muhammad the Prophet is not guiding you to apply the understanding and the teaching and the wisdom of the Quran, then what you become is Darleen. You miss the mark. You know, Darleen is you aiming for something, you're trying to get something. So the example is you with the NBA is back on, and I actually enjoy watching basketball, and you see them, everybody that shoots into the goal is trying to hit the goal. I don't think it's one person that's shooting and it's like, I'm just going to go over the backboard, or I'm just going to shoot from here and it's going to be an air ball. No, everyone is trying to reach it. But You see some that they shoot and the ball, literally, if you were to translate it with Darlene, it was going for the mark, but it missed its target. That's what Darlene, it missed its target. So in order to be like those two arrows moving into the far destiny, going to its target, you have to be led by the spirit of Muhammad the Prophet. That spirit is what takes your understanding, that takes your hard work, because I'm sure that they have been training, they have been putting all this effort in. Take all of the training, the hard work, the studying, your intellect, your five senses, your scientific method, all these things, and it allows for you to make sure that when you shoot that shot of understanding, when you shoot that shot to come to a conclusion, you come to a conclusion that is not going off and miss its target. So that's what the spirit does. So when we look at the Muslim world, they lost the spirit. They have the Quran, but they cannot apply the Quran in a way that is advancing their society and putting them back into the leadership of the world. They are missing the mark. So if we understand, we're gonna bring this back to our situation here as African Americans under the leadership of Imam Mohammed in this great country of America, who is going through some tough changes right now, but alhamdulillah, we'll talk about that in another segment. So when you understand that if Imam Muhammad is the mind that Allah wants our community to inherit, that is to bring us the true understanding of Quran and Sunnah, which is our inheritance. We were robbed of that. We were taken and we were robbed of it over and over again. Every time the mother was separated from her child in slavery, every time you were sold off from your family, you're constantly being robbed of inheritance that Allah has given us. When you have been snatched away from all these things, you're constantly getting robbed of that. And in our history, Allah is reviving our conditions in our souls, reviving it, and he gives us an inheritance that is protected in the wall ace, the wall ace in the wall. And we know of Moses and the wise men and how he built the wall back up to protect the inheritance of the orphan. So here we have Wallace, and ace is something like you get an ace bandage, it secures it. So here you have wall ace, you have an ace securing the wall that is protecting the inheritance of a group of people who have been orphaned and left out of the world and downtrodden and pushed to the side and degraded and put in a state lower, who was experimented on to see the African-American slavery in America is an experiment to see if the word of God is true. Mm-hmm. They're doing this experiment to see if it's true when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that in man is a great field, but in it, he keeps a spot in the soul closest to him. Closest, so like you have a huge field, but the person who tills the field, they always keep a little garden closest to the home. So there's a plot in the field that is reserved for the one who cultivates the soul. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the experiment is to see if I can situate myself in that position and cultivate what I want in that plot. Put myself in that position. I'm going to strip them of everything that they have. I'm going to tear them down. And then I'm going to try to sit in the very spot in the soul that is reserved for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the experiment. I want to see if that is true. And it says in the Bible that Satan, he went ahead of the plan of God in order to sit on his very throne. So we're making all these connections. So here we are, people where this great experiment has been done to us to see if they can sit in the very soul that is the very plot in the soul that is reserved for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you do that, and you do that in the name of Allah, doing this experiment and over people, and you're destroying their best life, destroying them on all accounts, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his sunnah, he obligates himself to step in and to address it. So he steps in and he addresses it by reviving in us an inheritance that has been left. And that inheritance is the mind of Imam Muhammad. We established that. But that mind also comes with the spirit. And that spirit is in the same movement as the spirit of Muhammad the Prophet. So when we understand Imam Muhammad like that, then that puts us on a whole like, whoa. And we're not, people often say, oh, you put Imam Muhammad up on this pedestal as if he is, Muhammad the Prophet. How can you do that? When we're talking about Imam Muhammad, we heard Imam Muhammad say all the time, I'm Wallace, I follow Imam Muhammad, and we know that the story of Moses and the wise man was Moses, and the wise man was his higher self. We go through that every day. My higher self tell me, Kalim, you ain't supposed to be doing that. And they call it, and then my lower self says, but I want to do it. My higher self, you know better. You know what Allah said. We go through this battle with our own selves. We do that Musa and the wise man journey in our minds every single day. So much that scientists have even given it a name. They call it mind talk, where they say that your mind, in psychology, your mind literally talks to yourself. There's one self that is wise or kind of advising or higher, and then there's another self, and they say that it's part of the conscious, and it's this part of the conscious where you have one talking to the other part of the conscious, navigating and directing it, and they say you actually talk to it in real speech. So in your own head, Kalimah, you know better. Now, you shouldn't do that. You should do that. So here it is where we have Imam Muhammad, who said Imam Muhammad is that higher reality, that higher the mind. Imam Muhammad is the mind and spirit of that Allah put on the heart of Wallace. That's what Imam Muhammad is. So when we understand that, but that mind is not reserved just for him. He told us that mind is our mind. He said when Allah gave Wallace this mind and this spirit, he was giving it to the whole collective of our community. Everyone that follows me, this is your mind, this is your spirit, this is your inheritance. And he protected it in the wall of Wallace. So Wallace was the protector of Imam W.D. Muhammad, which is the thinking and the spirit that we have to carry. So we can't divorce the two. And that's why they say in the Quran, Allah speaks of divorce. And we always say, oh, that's between a man and a woman. But Allah says, who are you to divorce the thing that I made one? So we have to understand that as things, what Allah gives us the tame, those two things that Allah puts together, what society does is they try to separate. So you have the Quran and you have Muhammad the Prophet. So whenever you see those dualities, these are things that Allah put together as one. But then the scheme, you'll see the scheme where they separate them. And Allah says that's why he hates divorce. You're divorcing ideology or principles or reality that Allah has made to be one. And that's how you advance. So you can have the Quran, but if you don't have the spirit of Muhammad the Prophet, that's a problem. That's a big problem. Or you have the people who claim that they all about the spirit of Muhammad the Prophet, and I'm putting up the quotes, but they don't want to acknowledge the Quran. They'll quote you 50 million hadith, they'll tell you 50 million, but they don't want to acknowledge the Quran. So when you divorce these things that Allah has made to be one, Allah hates it because it's going to by default every time make you go Darlene. So here it is, we cannot divorce the mind and the wisdom of Imam Muhammad from the spirit that Imam Muhammad had. We cannot divorce. That is one. That mind and that spirit is one reality. And we have to always know that. So we have a lot of people who will want to study Imam Muhammad, but they don't want to follow the spirit of Imam Muhammad. They don't want to. Khadija, Imam Muhammad's wife, she said She said it's so clean. One time we were giving a lecture. She says, whenever you read or study anything that Imam Muhammad gives you, ask yourself, what did he lead with? What did he lead with? Where was he trying to take you? What was that leadership? Because the Spirit leads. The Spirit is what leads. So even when you see the male and female symbols, you know, the female is the circle with the plus sign coming out the bottom, and the male is the circle with the arrow coming out. And that arrow is the Spirit. He is what leads the family. The Spirit is what leads the family. So in Islamic tradition, that's what leads. Two marks, the Spirit is what leads. So we cannot divorce those two. So whenever we come across information, if we go and we're looking at any scholar, anything in science, you name it, mathematics, you name it, you're supposed to look at it with the mind that Allah gave us with Imam Muhammad, but then also the spirit that Imam Muhammad had. And that spirit was to follow in the same spirit of Muhammad the Prophet, that their spirits were the same. They had the similar spirit in how they led and how they presented. So we have to always marry those two things together. And we have to make sure that whatever we study, we're coming from that premise, because that mind is your mind. Imam Muhammad's mind, his commentary, his thinking, that is your mind. So you can't dismiss your mind and go study something else in order to get another mind. Well, you can, but you're gonna be a little crazy. Majnun if you do that. I'm gonna get rid of my mind and I'm gonna get this mind over here, but then I'm gonna try to just suppose these two minds together and see how it works. And just you can't do that. That creates some kind of cognitive dissonance or schizophrenic behavior within your identity, because you cannot have two minds. You cannot be led by two spirits. And this is why we understand that a woman has one husband because she can't be led by two. And this is why a community has one husband. The community cannot have different leaders or different ideologies leading her, because if we understand that the woman is a community, then we have to look at our community. So when we have a situation where we have different spirits trying to lead our community, it doesn't work. It causes some kind of psychological breakdown in the life of community life. And we see that. We see these schisms and isms and breakdown in life. So when you have one person coming in and saying Farrakhan's the new leader, I'm just, another person say, no, we follow this. And then we try to juxtapose, well, I was once in the nation, but now with Imam Muhammad, and I'm still trying to follow these two things. You are going to have this mental breakdown within yourself, because you can't do that. You have to follow one spirit, one leader as a community. And so with that, we have to protect that. We have to protect that thinking. We have to protect that wisdom. We have to protect that spirit. We have to preserve Imam Muhammad, just as every single scholar had students that preserved their work. Just as Muhammad the Prophet had his Sahabas that were determined to preserve his work. Why? Because we are preserving what the world had lost in Muhammad the Prophet. So we're not preserving something different. We are in the same seat as the Sahabas. We're in the same seat as those who were around Muhammad the Prophet, and Muhammad the Prophet had passed away, and they had to make sure that they preserved and the spirit that he led with. They had to preserve it. But then it got lost. They lost the covenant. They lost that spirit. They lost it. And so Allah revives it with Imam Muhammad for us to preserve it in in the belly of the beast, in the most powerful country, with the most downtrodden individuals who the whole world saw what happened to us, but they all turned a blind eye. They didn't want to acknowledge it. And Allah gives it to us, and we rise up and we preserve it and we build off of it. That same spirit, that same information, that same wisdom, that same revelation that he gave Muhammad the Prophet, and how it advanced society after that. So we have to see that as a parallel reality. We have to see it as one, and we have to see the revival of Islam in the world in its truest and purest form, in the teachings and the mind of Imam Muhammad, which is the mind of us all, as the same thing that happened with Muhammad ibn Abdullah some 1400 years ago. So that's, I think I'm done. Opening statement. Alhamdulillah. So if you have anything, please.
Thank you. But no, thank you. That was very informative, excellent information. Straightened out a lot of questions that people had, interests people had. I believe that you know, especially in I'll say this in the best language, and especially coming from a woman saying all these things. Because usually, you know, we're usually hearing these things from men, imams, you know, so and so on. It's kind of like, okay, we know. But when a woman says it, it's a little different. The conviction is a little different. It's like, you know, knowing that Clara Muhammad brought the Honorable Elijah Muhammad into the nation of Islam. And basically that's how it started. You know, we all give credit to Honorable Elijah Muhammad, of course, but to say, okay, she saw, you know, when her friend took her to hear Professor Farad, and her immediate response was, this is good for my husband. You know, like the Imam said something like, not that she didn't need the nation of Islam, but it's like he needed it to get to where he's supposed to get to. So it's like that kind of a situation. The woman's delivery, understanding, and perspective is just a little different. Yeah, I was just gonna say a few things, make a few comments, and then ask a few questions. Yes, as far as like you said, the lens, we should have the lens of Imam Muhammad. It reminds me of something that for some reason I hear in our community. We say, you know, about what the Imam did for us, how he taught us and certain things, but I kind of never really hear basically what you just said in the context of how the Imam said it. I mean, the Imam said, he said, stop saying I brought you to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. So you had that in the nation of Islam, you had that, it was around him. So I didn't bring that to you. He said, what I brought you was a logic, like you said, on how to approach all these things. And like you said, not just the Quran and life of Muhammad, everything. So that has to be our logic, whatever we're reading, studying, looking at, performing arts, architecture, engineering, all with the, like you said, the Imam Muhammad's logic, you know, to approach the Quran. And even in the Quranic Arabic, you know, you're not, I'm just gonna say, you're not gonna get where Imam Muhammad got just by learning Quranic Arabic. Because like you said, other countries have all that stuff. He said, you have to approach it with his logic. What was it he's telling you about how to approach these things? How is it, what's one main thing, I know one main logic he keeps reminding us of, that sometimes if you're reading, you kind of forget, that I haven't heard. I'll say I haven't heard, maybe some scholars said it. He said the Quran is 100% commentary, correction on the books before it. So whatever we're reading is addressing the books before it. But most people don't know that. They're reading it, time, place, oh, this happened, this is how the verse came down and it stayed there. But Imam Muhammad said it's addressing books that came before it. Not that it's not addressing those things, but also it's addressing the books that came before it. That's the one thing I mentioned. Definitely, I was gonna ask you about that, but I'll make my comment and then ask you about it. Yes, having the spirit of the Imam, very important, very important. It seems like too many of us lost the spirit of the Imam. And for me, it's like you said, spirit is the direction. His character, his disposition on how he thought, how he treated people. I realized, we appreciate, I hope we appreciate his knowledge, you said his wisdom, but how he treated people. That's how you can tell also when he said, I love the prophet, I'm just gonna be around him, sensitivities. You see that. Perfect example. When Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, was by himself. It's not condemning Umar. He had a different character. You don't want to approach him. You don't want to say anything. But when he's around Muhammad the Prophet, it's like a totally different person. His sensitivities are more delicate. He's more concerned. He's more aware. And we find that with too many imams. By themselves, I'll leave it at that. Around the imam, hey, oh man, hanging around with him. As soon as the imam departs, the sensitivity departs. And the imam was saying, he said, the problem with the leadership was they loved me, but not the people. And the imam showed he treated both the same with respect and honor, to the point where you're like, how come this is, wow. But definitely the spirit of the imam, one time I'll give not personal, but I was at Masjid Taqwa, it's called Masjid Taqwa Jihad in the Bronx. And we invited him to a fundraiser, and he came. And, you give the imam an honorarium. The first thing he came in and saw, the place was huge, but there were no businesses around it to support it. And he basically came in and said, oh, y'all still have this? Alhamdulillah. That was a hint to say, like, I know you really can't afford this place. So as we were leaving, they gave the imam the honorarium. He gave back almost half. He said, that's for y'all, because he knew we couldn't afford that. It was generous, but I was like, wow, how many of us would have done that? To say, we could, thanks, and roll out. But the imam, he said, y'all don't have this kind of money. I respect that y'all respect me, but you need the money more than I do. So like you said, the spirit is definitely important. It carries, what the imam said, every word carries a spirit. So the more Quranic understanding you have, the better your spirit is, Islamic spirit is. What was a typical, if you can carve out a typical day in the class or with Imam Muhammad was like, that you can, yeah, we want to know that.
So, in the beginning, we would start class with Imam Sadiq, which is a very, very close friend of Imam Warthaddin Muhammad, and he trusted him to also influence and mold the minds of young people. And in the beginning of the class, we would do things such as Quranic recitation. We would recite surahs. We would also do things like play chess. We would study history. We would do music. So when we are talking about being students or studying Imam Muhammad, there is no part of education, no part of information, no part of community life that the wisdom of Imam Muhammad does not flow in, that the wisdom of Quran is not in. So what they do is they compartmentalize everything and they separate it. So you got this ology here, this ology, you got music, you have this, you have that. But the beauty of the logic that Imam Muhammad brought us to understand is that all of this is connected. So I'm studying music, but I can tie music straight into Quran. Hands down, I can tie every aspect of music into Quran. I'm studying chess, I can tie every aspect of chess into Revelation, which then Revelation being the manual for how we are to express our human life. So then I can tie it into all of this. So in the beginning of class, he wanted us to be the most well-rounded students that existed. And so he had Imam Sadiq, Muhammad Sadiq, teach us different things before he came to class. So we would get there early and we would have maybe 3 hours with Imam Sadiq studying different things, learning different things. But one of the most beautiful things that I took from studying with Imam Sadiq before Imam Muhammad would arrive to class was the appreciation and the understanding as to who Imam Muhammad was. And nothing else in the world or the universe should stop you or prevent you from receiving who Imam Muhammad is. So one of the examples was my sister, she says, oh, I'm going away to college. And he said, I hope locally. This is Imam Sadiq. I hope locally. Like, huh? There is nothing in that university that you cannot get here or that will be more important than what you're receiving from Imam Muhammad. There is nothing. There is nothing in that university. I don't care if you study at Cambridge. It does not supersede the wisdom and the hikmah of what you are getting ready to get here. So you better stay local. And so having someone who laid that groundwork in my thinking to know that, wait, I received Imam Muhammad, and then when I go to university, I'm a force to be reckoned with. Imagine me starting college at 16, going to university studying, can have full intellectual debates with professors, and got them going back thinking, well, damn, I don't understand. She just blew my mind, you know? But it's Imam Muhammad. And in addition to that, what Imam Sadiq did, which Imam Muhammad, I know intentionally made sure that he was there to give us this before he came and taught, because it was so essential. The other thing, Imam Sadiq, he taught us that the world is full of schemes, Satan's schemes. And he gave us a mind to be analytical thinkers. To not reject the world. And we know the example, it says, are the people who go out better than the people who stay in their house, or the people who stay in their house better than the people who go out and engage the world? No, the people who go out and engage the world are better than the people who decide that they want to stay isolated in their homes. So we are obligated to go out, but we're supposed to go out with an analytical and a soul of us that is cautious, that looks at everything and discerns, that is always discerning and cautious. And so that's the second thing that Imam Sadiq taught us, to always have a critical mind, going out knowing that there are schemes of Satan, knowing that there's potholes that you can fall into, knowing that the professor, his job is trying to bring you over into his way of thinking. Right. That's what the professor wants. He wants you to take on his mind. And that's why we call it alma maters. That's my alma mater. What does that mean? That's my mother. That's the mother is the environment that produces your mind. So that so now they want to claim you, yeah, we their mother. We the one that raised that thinking. So here we have Imam Muhammad, where he ain't got Allah raised that thinking. Right. The Quran is his alma mater. The Quran is the womb that gave him his mind. So now Imam Sadiq is pointing out all that stuff to us. So now we look into society and we got that critical eye. We're able to discern things. Okay. So he laid that groundwork for us for the first few hours. And then the anxiety kicked in because Imam Muhammad is going to walk through the door and we're going to be there for another 12 hours. No, not that long, but it would go long. But here is the point out the spirit. Imam Muhammad knew that we were getting there at 10 o'clock in the morning. He was going to arrive at maybe 12, 1 o'clock, and then he was going to teach for maybe 4 or 5 hours. So what he would do is he would cook food and send it there for us to eat because he knew we were going to be there all day. Or he would call up there. At one point, we were in the deli, and he would tell them to go in the back and make his students sandwiches. Or he would afterwards, he would take us all out, all of his students and their parents, out to eat at a restaurant because he knew that we were there all day. He knew that we, so this is when you're talking about the spirit of Imam Muhammad.
Yes.
You know, so he would come, and once Imam Muhammad got there, he would, you know, have light conversation, ask us how everything was, you know, what we got earlier. And then he would start off with Quranic recitation, because we studied 3 aspects in the class. It was Quranic Arabic, Islamic studies, and comparative religion. And he would ask us, what are you studying here? And we would have to answer with those 3 things. So we would start off, normally when Imam Muhammad got there, we would start off with Quranic Arabic, because the Quranic Arabic is going to naturally lead us into the Islamic studies, which then naturally leads us the progression into comparative religion. Because when you're studying Islam, like you made the statement earlier, Brother Hakeem, that the Quran comes to teach us about scriptures, come to correct things that came before. So how can you study Islamic studies without studying the comparative religion and understanding the other religions in order to understand what you're learning in the religion of Islam? So these things naturally go together. So we would start off with recitation. Now, Imam Muhammad, he always had recitation playing in the background, and he would say that we learn because of our environment. So class, we always had to have recitation playing in the background. Even when we were with Imam Sadiq learning the different areas, we still had to have the recitation playing in the background. Because like Imam Muhammad, he was a psychologist. I think my love of psychology grew because of Imam Muhammad. He was a psychologist, sociologist. I mean, any ologist that you can put at the end. I'm telling archaeologists, he studied who came before and looked at that. Any ologist, he put at the end. When you study the Quran, it takes you into all of those fields. So it would be time we're talking about class, and all of a sudden we're talking about mathematics. We're talking about history. We're talking about archaeology. We're talking about biology. And even in the Quran, we see that. Allah said he'll talk about plant life. He'll talk about the sperm. He'll talk about different things. So when you study the Quran, everything is connection. And no matter where that verse took us, Imam Muhammad let our minds go there. We would go there. So we had to have Quranic recitation playing in the background because it primes the mind to get accustomed to this language and that. But also, Imam Muhammad would have us open up with Al-Fatiha, and he would rotate. If a brother opened up, then a sister had to close out. If a sister opened up, then a brother would have to close out. And he would listen to our recitation, and he would correct us and make sure our recitation was correct. So he would choose one person to open up and close out. And so, you know, being in a lot of different environments, that was different for me myself, because Sister Kalimah come up here and close us out in Al-Fatiha, and I have to close out the Imam and everybody with Al-Fatiha. You know, I'm 12, 13 years old. But when you go to a lot of masjids or other places, they just call the Imam, you close us out, you know. But to see that everyone is responsible, everyone was a part of it, male, female, young, old, you're all going to have that responsibility. So that just having, once again, that spirit, seeing these little things, these little, I don't want to say nuances, but these little things in the class, in the environment that he cultivated for us was just amazing. And Imam Muhammad, though the class was 18 and under, most of the people were 18 and under. He started at the age of 12, and I think it went to roughly 21, but most of us were under the age of 18. He talked to us like he talked to imams in private sessions, like he talked to on Mount Arafat when he's talking to different scholars. This is how he talked to us. He didn't dumb it down. He did not, you know, use baby language. And as a matter of fact, he had us bring a dictionary to class, both in Arabic and in English. And if it was a word that we came across while we were teaching and reviewing stuff, he would say, Kalimah, look up that word and share the definition. And we would have to read that definition. So it was never a point in class where he looked at our minds as being undeveloped or a young mind, you're not going to understand this. He knew that if I'm going to give it to you so pure, so plain on the same level as in mind, and it's going to stay with you. It's going to stick in your mind. You're going to be able to take some, and what you can't take, he would say, put it up on the back burner, and it'll come to you later, and it'll resonate in your spirit at a later point. And it's things that I sit here sometimes and I'm talking to my sister. I had the blessing of actually being in the class with my siblings, so I had someone else to, communicate with. And so just sitting there, and I'll be talking to my sister. I'm like, you remember when Imam Papa said that? And we like, man, I remember that. That just blew my mind. But I haven't thought about it in 10 years, but it's still there. And he knew that. He knew that he was putting it there, just like he knew that that Quran in the background, that recitation in the background was still resonating in our minds. So once again, so we would start off, he would pick a surah. Once we opened up, we would pick a surah, and he would read the surah. We would have to recite the surah over and over again, and he would correct us in our recitation of the surah. And then he would begin to define or break down each word in that surah meant. So it could be something as simple as Ikhlas. We would have to recite Ikhlas over and over until he felt that he could hear that the collective recitation of Ikhlas from all the people in the class was as close and very good. He would still tell us to continue to practice it. And then he would break down what is cool. So we would go through each word. And even at times, we would go through even the letters in that particular word. So he would teach us what the sun letters meant, what the moon letters meant. He would teach us what different Arabic alphabet stood for. He would correct us. Instead of saying dagger aleph, he would say staff aleph, making us have sensitivities to things. Put that dagger aleph on Allah. No, don't put a dagger aleph on Allah. Put a staff aleph on there. Staff, it holds up, opposed to something dagger. It has. So he would make sure that he is constantly addressing and correcting our spirit and thinking on how we even approach things. Because if we understand that, like you said earlier, that words carry a spirit, and Jesus was the word, but he was also a spirit, and Muhammad is the manifestation of Jesus in the world, in community. That's what he is. But you can't have a spirit without a word, because how do you give it to people? How will I convey my spirit to you if I don't house my spirit within words?
Right.
And so when you look at what's the 1984, the book, it's a sci-fi, but it talks about how they control the language, and they took so many words out of the vocabulary so that they can control the thinking and the mind and the behavior of the people, because the word is spirit. So, this love for sci-fi, this love for different arts, all Imam Muhammad, he would say things like, I'm gonna write a science fiction book. So he knew he's writing lyrics to songs. So, and we would get glimpses of that. He would share these things with us. So now we're understanding that, wow, in all these different aspects of life is Quran, revelation, understanding, ayat, signs in everything. And it was not a moment that he didn't point that out. It'd be the time. He'll look up and he said, oh, look at what time it is. And then he would teach us on what those numbers meant, so everything. So now your mind is blown. Now you're kind of walking around looking like, man, everything is holding revelation. Everything is speaking to me, Allah. And he would talk about, look at, I taught on Stony Island, or look where we're at teaching, or look at the names of the people in my class. Your name is Kalimah, you're the word. This is Rashida, she is the one who was rightly guided. This is Khadija, she is one who came before her time. And so he's pointing out everything. So everything is speaking to us revelation. There's not a moment where he's not conveying to us understanding. Even in the jokes that Imam Muhammad, he's the good humor man. So even in the jokes he made, he would say, now I know I said that joke, but let's even look at that to understand. So coming up with a mind that knows that Allah is communicating with you at every given point, time. He is the Rabb. constantly evolving you. He doesn't leave you to yourself. Every moment, every second, every millisecond, Allah is evolving you and showing you in creation signs and understanding to help you develop. So that's pretty much our class with. And then
oh, man.
the Quranic Arabic and breaking down the words, it would take him to explain this to us. And it was just a constant journey. And he was big on making connections. Oh, he was really big on making connections. So he would teach us something. And if you can say, Imam, so you said this last time, and you said this time, and you make that connection, he would be so pleased. Yes, that is connection. And then he would expound on it even more. And he would just constantly show us. So that logical thinking and that spirit of Imam Muhammad taught, the spirit of Imam Muhammad allowed us to make healthy and sound, and we know in philosophy you have a sound logic, sound connections, which then brought about a sound understanding. So that's what the spirit does, because you can make some connections. You be like, how did brother connect that with that? You know, well, see, sister, you can't do this because Allah said, how did you make that connection? These are not sound connections, because the spirit didn't lead you to make these sound connections. So he made sure. And in addition, he trusted. When I tell you he trusted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh, he trusted Allah. He trusted that if we had a sincere heart, then Allah would guide us to understanding. He trusted that. He said he would give us, he would just hand us some wisdom or a commentary or a verse in the Quran, and he would go back trusting that Allah would take us to the same conclusion that he came to. Because if our spirit was right, then that's only natural that we would come to that same conclusion. And he trusted that. So it wasn't never a situation where I had to, beat you over the head with this thinking. No, you got to understand like this, understand like that. And if we came to a conclusion on understanding, Imam Muhammad, this is what I got, he would think about that. Oh, okay, I see that. Oh, and trust that Allah is our guardian evolver, just like he is everyone else's. Just like he, like it said, who we have Mary, and she was there, and Zechariah kept saying, he says, who's feeding her? Allah is. He trusted that Allah is going to constantly feed his servants. Muhammad the Prophet, who fed him? Allah did. Right. This is what Allah does. That's his sunnah. Allah don't deviate from his sunnah. What the one sister said, Allah can do anything but fail. He does not deviate from his sunnah. Right. So if you have a your heart, and we're coming here every day, every weekend, coming here to study with him, he sees that our diligence, our hard work, and we're struggling. He trusted that Allah is going to give us understanding and take us into a consciousness and a spirit that was in alignment with what he wanted. So you have all of this. There was nothing, if we said something, it was never bad, oh, okay, well, let's look at this even further, so all of these examples, and I literally can go on and on to show the spirit of Imam Muhammad, but also the environment that he set up for minds to be produced. And there is nothing, and I tell people all the time, there is nothing that he taught that we could not go and see in the Quran or in the life example of Muhammad the Prophet. So that's how I can say so emphatically, so sure, point blank, hands down, what he taught was classical Islamic studies. What he taught was just plain Quran and Sunnah, hands down. So that was class. And then afterwards, we would close out, and he would laugh with us. He would joke with us because he knew we were still young children, and we sat there for 4 or 5 hours. And I said he would feed us and things like that. So that was class.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have 2 questions, and I'm going to probably hopefully go to the audience for questions, inshallah, if they're putting questions out. Before I forget, Yes, those that are looking on your screen, there's a spot where you can, I think it was for questions. I think there's chat and there's questions. Don't go to chat, go to the questions and type in the questions. We're not going to take verbal, we're going to take written questions. If anyone has questions, if we can look at the questions and address the questions. Also, just remind everyone, this is NewAfrica Talks, with one of our guests, Kalimah Azeez Rashada. We're still waiting for Sister Manisa Duane, who's supposed to be on. Inshallah, she'll get here before the program is over. The last two questions was, what was, I guess like in a paragraph or sentence, unless you have to expound on it, what was the purpose of Imam W.D. Muhammad's Dawah class? Like, what did he tell you exactly, why he started the class, and what did he want from y'all as students?
Yes. Let me see if I can. So in the beginning, and I'm just going to take you through a little bit of the history. In the beginning, Imam Muhammad wanted the Dawah class to be a nationwide class. And he would have us here kind of like at home, and he would do a correspondence course, or if we had knowledge of Zoom and things like that in the past, he would do that for young people who was interested in comparative religion, Islamic studies. Not that their parents forced them, because we had children who clearly showed that their parents forced them to come, and even mom said, no, we're not going to force them to come. So this is for young people who want this, who is inclined towards it, and he really wants to open it up to be a course or a class for young people all around. So how the class actually came about was, it was right after 9/11, and the whole world was going through the 9/11 phase, and the Muslims were on the chopping block. They coming for them, and everybody and their mama was making statements. We are not okay with this. You know, they're making statements. Oh, Islam is this, and Imam Muhammad, he didn't make any big public statements. So Sister Ndidi, we all familiar with Sister Ndidi, she came to Imam Muhammad and she said to Imam, she said, Imam Muhammad, everything going on with 9/11, what are we going to do about this, in essence? And I'm paraphrasing, what are we going to do about this? And Imam Muhammad, his solution was, I'm going to educate the youth. That is my response to what's going on in the world, is to educate the youth. So in educating the youth, I'm going to, Islam is clearly in the world. It has a image or has a connotation in the whole world that is not in alignment with what Islam really represents. And I've been educating these old heads for all this time, and we still sitting in some of the same positions that we're in. So I'm going to turn my focus to the youth. And hopefully in time, once I leave, once the other imams and others leave, they will continue the banner of embodying and having in their minds, I'm going to give them this inheritance, this mind. And that will be the solution for the condition of Islam in the world. That was the purpose of the class. I'm going to impart this mind on to younger people who don't have hangups. I didn't come in, I was blessed to be born and raised in the religion of Islam under Imam Muhammad's leadership. And I didn't have hangups. I wasn't a pimp before. So I didn't come into Islam like, still got little pimp habits, like give me 4 eyes, kind of, got my own little thing. I wasn't a gangster before. I didn't come into Islam, still trying to, slick and get over and get the money from CPC and flip it and do it. I didn't come in with certain hangups or certain thinking. I wasn't Christian before. So a lot of us didn't come into Islam with a Christian mentality where, all I gotta say is Allah judges by intention. So I can still do that thing that may not be so good and just ask for forgiveness or make Ramadan and I'm born again. So these thinkings that kind of hurt our ability to embrace the purest teachings of Islam, a lot of us young people didn't have it. We didn't have those things that kind of put that barrier up or something that we had to tear down. Because even if in the first years of Imam Muhammad's leadership, he was tearing down these notions and these beliefs. He didn't have to tear anything down. He could come into fertile land and just build up.
Right.
So he wanted to make sure that he imparted that mind in an environment that was just fertile land that could accept it and didn't have any qualms. I look at the students of Imam Muhammad, especially in that class, and there were a few of us who you could look at us, Imam Muhammad, if he shared it with us, and when I say it wasn't like people think, well, Imam Muhammad spoke and then we was just in there like, yes. He would show us in the Quran. He would teach us. He was teaching us. So he was showing us in the Quran. Like I said, he had an Arabic dictionary where we would have to go and look up the word and like a concordance. So his Arabic dictionary was literally kind of like a concordance where everywhere you looked up the word, it show you if you looked up a word, it show you everywhere in the Quran where it is. He says, because Allah defines his own words through the Quran. So that's the definition. The Quran is his own dictionary for its own words. So we had dictionaries. We would look up stuff. He would tell us to review this, study this. We had homework. So, but anything that Imam Muhammad shared, I knew in my heart that it was haq. It was from Allah. He was teaching. I knew it in my heart. I didn't have no looking at it. When he did lectures, he said, I know some of y'all looking at me funny. And y'all don't believe what I'm saying and teaching, and y'all think that I'm crazy or a liar. And I'd be thinking like, who is thinking that? This is good. No, this is it. This makes so much sense. So we didn't have that, the funny faces looking at them funny. We just was like, yes. And so he wanted to make sure that we had that opportunity to get that mind, that inheritance that Allah gave us, as pure as possible. And that would be the solution for the condition of Islam in the world. Because he had high hopes that we would teach, because we were supposed to help out with his correspondence course. We would be teaching, we would be writing books. And we see students of Imam Muhammad teaching, writing books, but most of all being that lighthouse or that beacon. Because when we think of Islam and the teaching of Islam, we think of it as more so as a lot of rituals and tafsir, high wisdom. So that's what we think, oh, see, I got this high wisdom, my brother, I'm deep, when in actuality, the biggest thing that I learned was that everything Imam Muhammad taught us was teaching us how to have a certain character and disposition in our hearts. And that was more important. This high understanding was teaching us how to condition our souls. It wasn't about the actual bowing of the prayer. Oh, I make every prayer and I know what each prayer means. But what does that do for your heart? How did that prepare your soul? How is that making you kind to your neighbor? How is that making you speak words that are just? How is that making you look out for the next person, to love someone in their heart, to truly love someone, to give them the benefit of the doubt, to invest in my brother because I believe in him, to understand that this isn't even mine anyway. I'm just a Khalifa over it for a while. So that Islam was to condition our being or our person, to make us a new people, a new thinker, a new spirit moving, a spirit where you walk through this earth like Superman or Superwoman, in a sense where the highs and lows, the cold, the winter, the extremes of society don't phase you. You just keep going. They're looking at you like, how's she not affected by that? How COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, all this stuff going on, but she's still just, alhamdulillah, I'm moving forward, still kind to this person, still just, still speaking a word of righteousness here, still doing this. How is she not moved by that? He was trying to show us how to condition our souls so that we can exemplify that and help other individuals come into that. And then not only exemplify it in ourselves, but not be hypocrites. Not being a hypocrite in a sense where if I'm telling you that I studied Quran, I studied the life example of Muhammad the Prophet, and it has revolutionized and completely changed and elevated my whole life, elevated my soul in a way that is remarkable, then my life should reflect it. It has made me wealthy, then my life should reflect it. So if you're telling me that Islam is the best religion, but your life don't reflect it, you know, then you become as if you're a hypocrite. How is this the best religion, but you still like in a bad situation? Then that means it hasn't entered into your heart. So he wanted us to take that and then show it by exemplifying in our life, by building businesses. And he gave the example one time. This was the purpose, he gave the example of, he said, the whole world is going to be going in chaos and everything's going to be going on and the whole world's going to be in chaos and it's just going to be all crazy and they're going to be, where's those students and community of Imam Muhammad? And they're not going to see it because the whole world's in chaos. He says, and then this is his exact analogy. He says, they're going to pull back the layer and we're going to be like ants moving, working hard. You know how the ants are working so hard underneath the ground with whole colonies established. And they're going to look and they're going to say, wow, while we going through all this nonsense, look at what they have been building. Look at what they have. Look at what they have established for themselves. Look at all the connections and little pathways and things that they have developed for themselves. Wow, we need that. Go to the leader and see how we can exemplify that in our society, in our situation. So that's what we have to do. We have to exemplify. He wanted us to do that. And we know you entered through Egypt through many doors. So if there was anything I was interested in, if I was interested in music, I was supposed to take what he taught me and manifest it in my music so that when the music industry pulls back their layers, they see us and all the music we've produced and all that, they say, wow, how are they able to do music like this that doesn't degrade the female or do this, but still have a popularity with a catchy beat? You need to teach us. You know, if you were interested in real estate, when they pull the market pulls back and they're wondering what's going on, wow, how are these Black people able to have NewAfrica real estate where they sell houses amongst themselves and have this new particular architecture that kind of resembles Timbuktu a little bit? Wow, we need to follow them. So that's what we were supposed to do, go into every facet of human life and exemplify the teachings in our spirit, in our hearts, in our understanding, how we looked at things, and be that example for when the world has to find an example. The world is going to hell right now. They're looking for a new norm. They're looking for a new way of being, and they're searching. The world is searching. Well, how do we be now? What do we do now? And some people are laughing like, well, we've been making wudu and being clean all this time. And, you know, so what's going on? And they'll turn and we will be there just shining like, wow, we're going to have to follow that tradition. We're going to have to follow, and you see it. You constantly see things popping up that clearly come from the best of Islamic traditions and the best of Islamic. So that's what Imam Muhammad wanted for his students.
Thank you. One last question. Well, half hour. Then inshallah we'll open for questions, and if not, we'll just go back to more questions that we have. What did the Imam say about our people, African American people, and our plight that caught your attention or stood out the most for you?
Oh,
Be one thing. I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be a litany of stuff.
yes, but it is always a litany of stuff.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Yes, because like we said, everything is connected.
Right, that's true.
Everything is connected. So the thing that stood out to me the most when Imam Muhammad taught about us as African American people, I touched on a little bit earlier, and that being that one, we were in this great experiment, whereas the powers that be was challenging Allah. They were challenging Allah, and they wanted to see if the words or what Allah teaches is true. They wanted to challenge him. Well, Allah, you say that you have a special hold or a special connection with your creation that no one can undo. We want to see if it's true. We want to challenge it. We want to see if the concept of your fitra is a reality. So we're going to take these individuals, these Africans, and we're going to bring them over here into a new laboratory called the Great Experiment of America Laboratory. And we're going to do an experiment on their soul to see if what you said is true. So really, we are a innocent participant in a devilish scheme to challenge the creator of the heavens and earth. Mm. Whoa, like you think about that, you know, you think about like, I was used as experiment to challenge God, and what he says is haq, because they didn't want to accept it. Well, you say it's haq, but I'm going to challenge you, God. You know, what arrogance. How dare you? So here I am, innocent, but we know we weren't all that innocent, because we wouldn't be in a situation if we were. But after a while, because we left off. If you look at the conditions of Africa, you can tell that we left off some stuff. So we weren't all that innocent, but we were, just like the children of Israel. All of them weren't innocent. Some of them were still building golden calves, but as a whole, they were an innocent group. And so this experiment was done with us to challenge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this challenge of taking everything away from us and trying to sit in the very seat, sit on the throne of Allah in the life of humans, where Allah says that you can come at them from the front, the side, the back, behind, but what we understand is that you can't come at them from the top or from the bottom. When we have that analogy in the Quran, when Allah says Satan will attack you from all these angles, but he can't attack you from the front and the bottom. I mean, the top and the bottom. The bottom is your fitra, the way you were just made. Allah has programmed into your soul. I don't care. They were challenging the fitra. It was a challenge to see if the fitra was accurate, or if they can program humanity on their pattern. So that was part of that experiment. How, if we can program humanity on that pattern. So we're gonna try to reprogram the African Americans' fitra to see if we can sit in that seat. But you can't. You can't come at us from the fitra, and you can't come at us from above. That's the revelation. So these are the two areas that is reserved from Allah. So we clearly, they got revelation and tried to come at us from revelation, and they tried so hard to come at us from my fitra. Can we alter their fitra makeup to make them artificial beings or beings that are for us. So that's what they try to do to us. But here it is where we're in slavery and we were taught that the white man was God. We were taught that God was a white man. We were taught that we were destined for this. We were animals, that we were worse than cattle, and we were beaten and tortured and all this kind of stuff. But the fitra did not change. The fitra of the African American soul, the fitra of any human being put in that situation, it did not change. Our fitra was the same, and we still long for Allah. We still long for these things. Imam Muhammad said that the freedom that we wanted, more than being free of physical bondage, was to be free to know God in a way that liberated our souls to be able to express our lives in alignment with Him and not in alignment with something that was oppressive and trying to hurt us. Because that's what they were using. They were using God as their excuse. So we long for that. That's the freedom. We wanted freedom in religion. We wanted freedom in our expression of our souls to be able to worship and know God, which then allows us to know our position in the world. That's why the Shahadatain is so powerful. So once you know who Allah is, La ilaha illallah, that teaches you Muhammad and Rasulullah, that teaches you man's position in the universe. If I understand Allah is the Rabb over me, then that allows me to understand who I am and where I serve. And man's whole plight is to understand, who am I? I think, therefore I am. What is my purpose in life? That's what we've always been searching for. So here comes the Shahadatain that answers that philosopher Plato and Aristotle's question for what is my purpose? Who am I? You cannot understand who you are until you understand who Allah is, and that lets you know who you are as His creation. So here we are as slaves trying to search for that understanding, searching to understand who God is so that we can know who we are, where we fit in this world, where we fit in this whole scheme. So Allah knew that. He knew that. And that search created and made us a new people. We're a new people. We know that. So that's why we had the term Balelians and New Africa. We became a new people. And as a new people, Allah, Sunnah don't change. He comes directly to this new people to help them. He's the Rabb. He doesn't leave us once we become this new people. We infants, we children, we don't have anything. We're lost. We don't know what to do. We just know that the condition that we were in our soul was not supporting the pattern that He gave us, and we're torn and we're hurt and we've been beat down and we've been discarded and degraded to the lowest form. And now we are new people. And so with that being a new people, we got the covenant. Like, what? When you think about that, like, no, we really are. I've traveled. I've lived in Africa. I have been to different parts of the world. And Allah tells us to do that so that it can really register on you. Like, no, we are different. We are different. We are new people. So to understand that we are new people, to understand that the answer or the solution or the assistance that Allah gave us as a new people is Islam. So when you understand that because that's what we were searching for, we more importantly, like I said, more importantly than getting our physical freedom was to get the freedom in our spirit from the detrimental experiment and negative situation they were constantly putting us in, to try to sit in the position of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our very souls. So when we were looking for something that spoke and addressed the oppression in our souls, the oppression in our understanding of God, the oppression and understanding of who we are. And Islam is the religion that comes to liberate you. So the answer to every African American in the world And the meaning that went through our experience here is Islam. That is the natural solution to their condition. That is the only thing that's going to answer the problems and the situation that they're in. It's Islam. So when you start seeing Islam like, yeah, oh, that's your religion. No, that's your salvation. So for Imam to make me understand that, no, this is their inheritance too. This is every, we're talking about Breonna Taylor, we're talking about George Floyd, we're talking about all these people who are out there protesting, all these individuals. This is your salvation as well. This is your gift for you to find your life again in this United States of America, to find your life again in your own soul, in your own expression. I have it. I have it. Ooh, when you think of that like that, when you see, that's why everything that they are doing, I'm not negative, but we look at Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. I speak on it, people. It is destined to be its own undoing. That movement, built into the very movement, is its undoing. Because as we know in Islam, there's no black over white. We know from the Prophet's last speech. And we also know that we are supposed to be a rahmatul alameen. We're a mercy to all of the world. When you put into your very platform of justice division, it can only be short-lived. It can only be short-lived. So we are even the solution. So every we look at the movements that we've had before Black Lives Matter, we had some other term. We had this, whereas we love NAACP was big on the scene for a while, and now it's an after voice. It's not as big on the scene anymore. We have all these different Black voices that seem to be roaring and massive, but none of them are the solution to the condition of our people. The only one is Islam, what Islam brings. And it will continue, everyone will continue to be its own undoing. It will continue in the very language to undo itself. The only thing that will sustain is what we got. So when you understand that, I can literally lead a campaign right now that will be far more reaching, and the longevity, it will be a far more reaching and so much more powerful than the ones that we're doing, because it'll be built on the premise of Islam, and everyone will love it. Everyone will embrace it. Everyone will understand how justice needs to come. Everyone will understand how Muhammad the Prophet was able to change the whole Arabian Peninsula and even the world with this particular ideology and rhetoric, and how that same thing is going to happen to the African Americans here in America. And that is our responsibility. So,
wow, thank you. Well, okay, we have one question that just popped up. So, yeah, we got. Inshallah, I should get in. If not, Allah knows best. How did learning in Imam Muhammad's class give you a better knowledge of self? How did you use this to remain a proud African American woman in spaces where you were the only Black Muslim woman?
Okay, so I'm going to start with the second half. Being in Imam Muhammad's class, I remember this concept of African American women being one of the most powerful individuals on these shores. And the reason being is, especially the ones with Imam Muhammad's teaching, we have African American Muslim women from other leaderships, but their ability to be as powerful has been stunted because the lack of understanding and wisdom that Imam Muhammad has given us, and that spirit that he's given us. So the confidence that studying and understanding the religion, us as African Americans, our inheritance as a new people, which is the religion that's our inheritance, the understanding just took me from having one thinking of kind of like, oh, we just kind of here, to a thinking that's like, no, I am Khalifa. So it literally transformed. I am Khalifa. We know Khalifa is feminine and is, so I am Khalifa. I sit in the most powerful position. I am an African American. So like Imam Muhammad, he picked up that flag and he carried it across the stage where all the other people are downing America. He said, why would I down this country? I built it. I made it. It's part of my inheritance, So each people, we know that culture is developed out of the land. You develop your culture from your physical environment, the land. So this land is part of my cultural inheritance to be who I am. So I pick up this flag, I claim this land. And literally, I'm powerful in the sense where I am the womb in which this country was birthed. I fed your children from my bosom. No, you hear Sujana Truth when she stands up there and she gives her speech. You drank from my breast. You drank my milk. I nurtured your children. I reared you. I am the womb in which this country was birthed. So just on that, being an African American female, it's like, I'm the most, I sit in a very powerful position, not powerful like where I am contending or I am knocking the African American male. Because true women know that that's never the case. But in a position where I am the womb in which this whole environment is birthed out of. Even, like you said, man means mind and the woman is the womb of the mind. So in a sense of a mother always wants to see her son, her males, advance and build society and go out and establish and make it comfortable for her to be. So we never think that when we are talking about male and female dynamics in Islam, especially with the wisdom that Imam Muhammad gave us, that it is to put down one group or lift up the other, but it's just showing each group in their natural right. So here I am, the womb, as an African American woman that birthed this country. And then I am also the womb for Islam, which is the solution for this country. So I embody both of that. I embody the physical labor and the trials and turmoils of being enslaved here and actually birthed in this country through my womb of my dark skin and my condition as a female. But then also I am the womb or the preservation of the wisdom, because that's what a community is. A community, or the woman, preserves the wisdom for generations to come, for the next generation. So we preserve the wisdom. So if you see a society or a community where they have stop signs and they have roads and handicap signs, you can say, wow, that's an advanced society. That society has the care for every group of people. They have wisdom in this society. That's how they were able to create a society with stop signs and all these different things. So here it is. I'm a woman that preserves the wisdom while we cover our hair, preserving and protecting the wisdom. That's why I can wear gold as a woman. So I preserve the wisdom of Islam, which is the salvation and solution to this country, me. So I sit in the most powerful position in this country, and this country happen to be sitting in the most powerful position in the world right now. Well, that's up for debate, but we go stick to that it still does. It's in the most powerful position in the world. So now that puts me in the most powerful position in the world because we understand what women represent. I'm a community. I am a community, a new community that of God, a new community that has been birthed out of the most horrendous situation that God has elevated and rose up, that is preserving the wisdom of Al Islam, which is to take society to an divinely inspired republic. All of that is housed within me as a woman, which is also me as a community of Imam Muhammad. That's what we represent.
Mm.
So now it's like, can't touch this. You know, it got that feel like you can't touch this, not out of arrogance, but out of everything that we endured. Allah is preserving that. That's why the position of a Muslim woman, can't nobody just be touching it, or can't nobody have rights to it, or the honor of the Muslim woman has to be preserved at all costs. And if you dishonor or defile the character, the nature of the Muslim woman, then you like, we don't take your word for nothing. So I sit in this powerful position because of that. So when I go anywhere, when I engage in anything, knowing this now becomes, but knowing this, but also knowing the wisdom of how to navigate, knowing the understanding where we need to go, understanding my position in society. It makes me like I said again, that Superman or Superwoman moving where you can go in. I live in Memphis. I can go in, call the mayor. Hey, Mayor Strickland, some concerns I want to talk to you about the community, and I would love to have a meeting with you. Oh yeah, anytime, Kalimah, let's set it up. You know, and you just can move like that because you understand, you know. And so that's very powerful. And what's the first part of that question?
You might have answered it already. We might have probably answered, but I guess let's figure out. How did learning in Imam Muhammad's class give you, well, you probably answered it already. How did learning Imam Muhammad's class give you better knowledge of self? Yeah, I don't know, you may have already answered, I guess. Yeah, you answered it already. So yeah, that, and the last part, you answered already. We're gonna have one last question because we want to mention something else at the end. We asked all of our, is another one? Truth. Yes. We asked all of our guests on the program this because it's basically concern of the community. Some more concerned than others, but still concerned of the community as a whole. What are your thoughts regarding the future of our community in this context? And if you have another context, you can mention that too. Should we be establishing or working to establish a national shura body with an identifiable name? That we're not talking about organization, name that's identifiable of us, of who we are. Because I remember the Imam said a while back, at the position that we're at, they just want to know who you are. So I'll read it again. Should we be establishing a national shura body with an identifiable name, or should we be looking to put one leader over the community? This is a discussion that many might have. Yeah. So basically, shura, individual, identifiable name.
All right. So I want to start off by reminding us that what Imam Muhammad taught us is Quran and Sunnah. So we should not have anything without a shura. Shura, that's just Islamic standards, is to have a shura. We should always have a shura, where we know that where there is two of us, one leads, but we also know that we always have a shura. We always have that. Muhammad the Prophet had a shura body. He was Muhammad the Prophet. So we do not operate outside of that tradition, because what we do operate in is within the parameters of the religion. So Imam Muhammad always encouraged us to have a shura. Every Clara Muhammad School should have a shura. Every community should have a shura. Every masjid should have a shura. even in homes, you know, I know in my home with my family, we have a shorter board, you know, amongst us, you know, we'll have a discussion and it'll go back. And even of the shorter, you have someone who is the leader of the shorter, but understanding what leader means, and understanding we are not going back to Nation of Islam time where we had one leader. We point to this one leader. We are living in the age where, and again, like in class, Imam Muhammad can point out everything and what's going on in society, movies, and give us so much wisdom. So that's something that we continue to do as students.
Yeah.
We're living in an age where the focus is not in the masjid. The focus is not in structured places. The focus is going back to the family unit. The focus is going back to the individual person. Like we always say, you can't have a model community without modeled individuals. So Islam preserves that wisdom. We have collective prayers, but we also have sunnah prayers. And Imam Muhammad said the sunnah prayer is the prayer where you have to lead yourself in your own education. You have to lead yourself in your own establishments and practices of this religion and living righteous, and the rise and fall of your own morals and your own behaviors and your own righteousness. We are in the age of sunnah. We're in the age of each individual learning how to be educated and standing up within itself to advance. And the onus and the responsibility is on the individual. And it says there'll come a time when the Quran, it is revealed upon the hearts of each of the individual. It's going to be revealed upon each of us. So we're all responsible. We're all leaders. We are all leaders, because in your sunnah prayer, you are your leader. So we are all leaders. So we're living in that time. Society won't even, the way society is not even going to support, you know, we're beyond the point where we have that one leader. And even if you look at our history as African Americans, we've always had that one leader pop up amongst us. Frederick Douglass, W.B. Du Bois, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Noble Drew Ali. We've had these leaders. But now we're in an age where the onus or the responsibility is upon the individuals. And we are responsible for the conditions of our society. We are responsible for advancing things. And wherever we come together to do the work, we put together a shura and we choose someone of that situation to lead us in that instance. But it's always rotating, because no one person possesses the ability to lead on all fronts. So the true, how we should be moving at this point is moving towards doing the work that Allah wants us to do. And when we get all those like-minded people together, we use the qualifications of Quran and Sunnah to choose who's gonna lead us in this project. So we say, who's the most knowledgeable amongst us? Oh, he's the most knowledgeable amongst us. Who has the best character? And we look at that and say, okay, this one will lead us on this project. And then another project come up. You all in New York. I shouldn't come here. I'm in Memphis right now talking about something. I'm gonna lead y'all in New York and tell y'all how to move with New York and what y'all need to be doing. We already have the leader. We already know what's leading us. That is the Quran and the Sunnah. That is through the perception of Imam Muhammad. He gave us all that mind. That's our leader. Muhammad the Prophet is our leader. It's a timeless relevancy, and it's continued to lead us. I joke. I said, we can't even find a leader for the United States. Look at the leaders that's produced right now. We need to come together and that is what I am. My suggestion, especially with what Imam Muhammad told us, he made a statement. He says, they asked, well, who will lead us after I'm gone? And I can actually read that quote to you all.
Please do. Yes.
It says, pull that up 1 second. It says, Assalamu alaikum, Brother Imam. The question is, what kind of plans are in place for us as a community once the leadership is no longer here, once you have passed on? What kind of plans and projections are in place for the community to preserve your leadership once you are no longer here? Imam Muhammad responds, I have given a lot of knowledge from myself that I know can carry the community forward to certain ones who have come to me and shown interest and appreciation for it. Also, if you study what I'm saying and what I said, you can protect my leadership after I'm gone. He goes on to say further down, you stand alone. You don't have any followers behind you during the Sunnah prayer. You say, Imam, I'm in the position of Imam, directing myself to the Kaaba, and then you go on and say Allahu Akbar. So our prayer is teaching us that everyone is supposed to be its own leader. And we have more examples of this, but Imam is telling us that we are supposed to be our own leader, and we are supposed to have in us an interest to carry the community forward and to protect his leadership after we're gone, after he has left us. That is everyone's responsibility in the community, not any individual's responsibility to think that they can come and do that. So I encourage us, like I said, for us to choose leadership whenever the opportunity or the criterion for leadership needs to be chosen, and you choose according to the criterion that Allah has given us. But we are always supposed to have a shura.
Right.
Every masjid, everything we do should have a shura.
So yes, I just want to also this last piece of clarity, because I remember I'm not sure if the Imam said it, but I did remember him saying there's local concern, right? The local concerns, and then there's national concerns, like us as the village. You mentioned individual, but there's also, like you said, there's national concerns that there should be a shura body, like you said, for what do you call it? Concerns. Like a national, if it's local, we deal with local, but if it's national, we need to gather national concerns, like I said, choose someone from that position to address that, and then after that, roll. So you say basically, so you're saying basically, it's not, what do you call it? A standing shura body, or like that's there, or you're saying that it's only when it's necessary that they exist, and then they're not there anymore. That, because I would make sure, because I ask everybody different positions, and they say, well, we're saying it should be a standing, there shouldn't be, so we'll just make sure. Because that goes under the title of also there's an identifiable name with the group too. Yeah, so we should have a standard shura body of the best amongst us, those who are dedicating themselves to the advancement of our community and things like that. We should have that. Right. But the question then becomes, well, who will be the leader over the shura body? Well, whatever issue, whatever concern that we're putting forth, we choose the leader for that issue. So if just say we're dealing with business, I'm not a business person. So why would I be the person up there nationally representing our interest on business if I have no business knowledge? So let the situation as to what we're dealing with determine who will be, quote unquote, the spokesperson at that time. Who's the best person? Because naturally, I'm gonna go find the best person. We talking about business. I'm gonna go find the brother over We Buy Black, because he knows more about business. I say, hey, national concern, we got these issues we need to address about African American Muslims in business. Can you be the one who speaks? You're the most qualified. You're part of our shura. You're the most qualified. Right. I'm not a doctor. We're talking about COVID-19. What does the masjids do because of COVID-19? Right. So even in that, almost each arena has a shura. So we may have a shura of doctors. Right. Exactly. That will get together and discuss for us on behalf of our community. So what this starts to look like, it looks like just so many
different concentrations, each concentration having a shura, the issues that will represent our community. So now it starts, is it really, do we have one leader or are we all leading?
Right.
Still using the tradition and the establishment of what Allah tells us to do in the Quran, what Muhammad exemplified in his lifetime. So, like I said, you may have a shura of business people. We have a shura of doctors.
Yes.
We have what do we do with education right now? Look at education. Why don't we have a shura of Muslim educators in our community,
right,
that looking at the climate, looking at what's going on in the world and saying, okay, we got COVID-19, we have virtual schools, we have funding just going, finna follow the student to go back to private and religious schools. This is what is assured for our communal interests around the United States, around the world, Bermuda, and if you in Canada and you with Imam Muhammad, we have been working to come up with this is why we're going to do this. We're going to establish homeschool hubs where communities can homeschool their children together. We're going to start up a network between this. Why don't we have that? And each of them will become leaders in their own right. So again, it goes back to it's sunnah. Each of us leading in our own rights or perspective areas where we are qualified to be leaders.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I can never say enough thank yous. Right.
So do we give ourselves a name?
Huh?
Give ourselves a name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I forgot a little bit. Yeah, we got right. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. It's the name.
My answer is, well, if the best amongst us in our shura say yes, then I go with it. If they say, let's come up with a nice name for us, then yes. But we know how names have been used in the past.
Yeah.
I'm good with just being like, what are you? I'm a student of Imam. You know, or we can be so basic. What are you? I'm Muslim. That's my name. My name is Muslim. What's your name? You say, who are these? Oh, these are the Muslims. Imagine that every work that we do, we name ourselves the Muslims. How powerful is that? So what that does is it does two things. It makes everyone else who not doing right they have to look, no, we just heard from the Muslims and they don't do that. And now the other people who doing other stuff looking like, oh yeah, you're right. Or it clearly makes them have to say, oh yeah, well, the Muslims spoke, so I have to edify and rise up in myself. So, and then it makes people look, well, who are these Black folks in America who are saying that, no, who are we? We are the Muslims. So then the other countries who are doing other stuff, it makes them have to look at it. Something so simple as that, to be called the Muslims. Just run through every scenario in your head. Whenever we put out a statement, the Muslims agree that, blah, blah, blah. The Muslims, blah, blah. That is so powerful. That in itself is just like, it's like saying, oh, the humans want rights. Well, no. Oh, the humans in America are asking for still basic human rights. The humans want clean water in Flint, Michigan. Like, well, duh. Yes, the humans do. That in itself is so powerful, but it's so fundamental. And that is how Allah does it. Because, the Muslims, the human beings, the believers. Who are you? Are we the believers? So we have to think like that. We want to create an identity because we struggle with identity. But my identity is Muslim. That is my identity. Before I am Black, before I'm a woman, before I'm a human being, I am a Muslim. I am trying to submit my will to Allah. That name will go further than any Black Americans of the IWDM. Yes, it's cute, but to be able to say Muslim, hey, that revives Islam to the world.
True.
And that's what we're here for. We are the Warthuddins. We go to Philadelphia, they call me the Warfdinis. Oh yeah, you went in Warfdinis. And I laugh, I said, you straight calling me the revival of your religion.
Right.
That is exactly what I am. So we are the fathers of the religion to the world. We are the Bilalians. We are calling the world back to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we just simply call ourselves Muslim.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Thank you again. We comment. Sorry, guys. No more time for questions. Maybe man, probably have to call you back again. We can call Sister Nisa Dewan. Got to bring you back again, maybe for something for next year. Something for next year. We definitely call y'all back. We want to thank you for your time and your information and your insight and commentary and clearing up a lot of information, a lot of questions we had about the Imam class and so forth, especially about how to see the Imam more as a mind, as a character, as a sensitivity, as a spirit. And we know the spirit, I always try to remember this, Imam said spirit is direction. Because we think about spirit, we think about, abstract, but a direction. We think spirit is direction. So we'd like to thank Sister Kalimah Azeez Rashada, Memphis, Tennessee, right? Yeah. Memphis, yeah. Yes, I was gonna say the home of Elvis, but I don't understand. Anyway, just kidding. Hold on a second. Huh? Oh, right. Last talk we had, we able to find out how was someone get in contact with you if they wanted to contact you or ask you any more questions or follow you or anything like that. Was there like a I guess like email, website, wherever it is, you can give information, probably,
So you can always follow me on Facebook. I do spoken word because I am the Kalimah, I am the word. And so I am the spoken word. And so I go by the name Medina Rose. It's a play on words because we're trying to bring back Medina because that is the divinely inspired republic that Muhammad the Prophet established, and it rose. We're trying to bring it back. So Medina Rose, that is my
MEDINA
H.
Okay, so it's MEDINAH.
Yes.
Right. So on Facebook, okay, that's good. Okay.
You can always connect with me on Facebook, but you can also feel free to email me at kalimahshada@gmail.com. And that is KALIMAHRASHADA@gmail.com. We're actually getting ready to start I guess it's like a short podcast called 2 Minutes Flat, where we are taking questions from people around the world about religion, spirituality, psychology, and things of that nature. And as students of a group of students of Imam Muhammad, we will take your question and we will answer that question in 2 minutes flat. So it'll just be quick, 2 minutes flat, answering different questions that people submit to us from around the world about religion and all those different subjects, and we'll have something for you. It will be fun, interactive. I can be a little entertaining, and so we'll bring understanding to that question in 2 minutes, and then hopefully give you some resources afterwards in our credits as to other places that you can go to advance your understanding on that particular question you may ask.
Thank you very much. We thank you. We thank the audience for listening. We do have next month's topic for us. We haven't reached out to them yet, but we're going to reach out to these two brothers to be the speakers next month. The title of next month's talk is "The African American Man: His Duty to Himself and His People." The African American man, his duty to himself and to his people. And we're reaching out to Imam W.D. Sharif out of New Jersey and Sharif Abdul Malik of We Buy Black. So again, thank you for coming on the show. We thank Brother Mujahideen Mohammed, as always, for technically setting the situation up. May Allah continue to bless all of us. And thank you. We will close out just by saying Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.